In this video, we'll be going over UI, add-ons, and breaking down the important factors of how to make your play better in Raiding and Mythic Plus. To begin, the disclaimer here is that all of this is based off my opinion. I do not own or intend to sell anything here for UI or add-ons. So I wanted to briefly go over my UI and my add-ons. Right now I'm in a follower dungeon, but bear with me here. There's been a few requests. Of course, my channel is just starting off. A couple of my plus 10 videos reached 200 views different videos rather. So I'm really excited about that. Of course, I'm excited only because I'm a new streamer, new to YouTube. So if you can like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. So what I want to do with this video is go over some basic stuff. And I will leave a link to my Discord. Reason being is there's a lot to share, and I took the time to put all of these links and my profiles and whatnot into my Discord chat. There is a UI specific WoW chat that will be available there, and it's free. Doesn't cost anything. So again, would appreciate if you could like, comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do. Will help my channel go a long way. Hopefully I can make one of these every season. To begin, I'll be going over some basic stuff, practically my WeakAuras add-ons, and then even go a little bit and talk about sell. First WeakAura I'm going to talk about is this clickable WeakAura. That's just really convenient to use at the beginning of a dungeon. Say you're just starting out your group, you're going to set the keystone in there. Even before that, you have these buffs here. This is a very old buff, but I'll just click here and voila, that's done. And so I know I need to use my buff here. I'll choose a flask and then I'll eat some food. I just click it right here. It makes it easy. Of course, you can still have it here on your bars. But what I like about this clickable WeakAura is just the ease of use, and you can set the timer when those things will show up for you. So there's like a dungeon threshold, like less than 35 minutes or less than 30 minutes. Depending on what dungeon you start, you might run through your buff like in the dungeon. Typically what I like to do is just buff up before the dungeon, even if I have like 30 minutes left on a buff, just so I don't have to worry about it in dungeon. Everybody has their own preference, but I do like the clickable buff, so I wanted to start out with that. WeakAura that I find helpful as well is this Callouts WeakAura. It looks like it's by BroBoy07. Anyhow, this WeakAura will occasionally tell you when to defensive, when things are happening in Say Chat, which sometimes things are obvious, but sometimes it does come up and tell you some things that are very helpful. So I like this WeakAura, and it is something that I use all the time. Another WeakAura I'd like to go over is the Zytech Dungeons WeakAuras. So there is an anchor for it, so you definitely want to move the anchors only. But this one, I actually use both this WeakAura and the other the War Within Dungeons WeakAura from /Twwdungeons. So in both of these I think are very helpful. They just display things in a different way, so I just ended up keeping them. Also, the Ellesmere Dungeon Frontals could be a little bit annoying depending on if you like sounds playing at the master level channel. I think it's a gunshot, but it will warn you for the dungeon frontals, which once you get used to when these frontals are happening, you're probably less likely to want this to be blaring. So what I actually did is I changed it. Let's see if I can find it. Go to actions. Okay, right here. I changed it to be from master to another one that's a little less blaring with sound. So this one I actually recommend. This other one here is required % to leave an area, which will, depending on I think there's actually options to change this, but either way, I don't change it. It's essentially, once you're in an area and need to kill a certain amount of mobs, it will warn you that you're actually short. This came up on one of my runs for, I believe it was Grim Batol, but the tank wasn't sure, and then it popped up, and so we just went back and killed a few mobs, and then kind of kept going forward. So sometimes it's actually really handy. Finally, I think this is two more WeakAuras that I find helpful. The M+ talent reminders when you're actually in a dungeon, right when you do the ready check, it'll tell you to change your talents based off your class. Because there's different dungeons that have different things that happen that you might need either an extra dispel, you might need mass dispel. It depends on your class really, but I like this one. And also the auto mark. Typically as a healer, you probably won't be auto marking, but there are some settings that would apply. Like for example, once a dungeon started, it would say here, in orange text, current marker is character name. So you're well aware of who's auto marking, and the auto marker is actually really helpful. I don't have any issues with it. Let's see what else. Dungeon teleports, very handy one. Once you have your teleports, it'll pop up here. There's actually a portal library too, which is really nice. So you can just go on your teleports and then click on them. Another thing I want to bring up is preference on where your frames are. For me, I typically do not like where the frames, again, I've seen players do this, and that's a personal preference, but for my opinion, where the frames are in your screen here to the left, I don't like that, only because I want to see more of my screen, and I would say my frames are about maybe a third of my screen to the bottom, but not completely a third. So I do have more screen to view, and that's just kind of my thought process on it. So even with raids, we'll go through Cell a little bit, is that dungeons and raids, all my frames are going to be here at the bottom. Again, personal preference. You may play differently, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. But again, that's how I view it. So for raid and dungeons, my frames will be at the bottom. That way I know consistently where I'm going to be targeting players and not kind of shifting my eyes. I know that if I look up a little bit here to where my mouse is, where will be where BigWigs is showing. So I know exactly where my timers are. I know exactly where my players are. I can look up to the left if there's going to be a specific WeakAura, and I'm not like changing my thought between dungeon and raid as to where my player frames are. So that's my thought process there. I'm going to briefly go over the add-ons I have enabled. Again, I have a lot of add-ons. You can see that, for example, I still have DVM, but I'm not using it. I probably should delete it, but just for the sake of showing this, I'm going to go through my enabled add-ons, ones that I find important. So there is a WeakAuras sound pack that I have here by both Caussies and Zytech. Again, if I butcher those names, I apologize. Add-on CPU usage. This one is good to see if you're lagging or something and you're in a raid. What you can do is, so let's see if I can open it up. CPU, I believe. Okay, so I've tried this before and it's actually helped a little bit to disable an add-on. So what you would do is, it even explains how to do it. You would enable the profiler, you would start it, and then you would do a pull of a boss, and at the end of that encounter, it will tell you which add-ons are taking up most of your resources. If you're having issues, a good example would have been Tendril, right? Everybody had computer problems for Tendril, so you would want to limit your resources, disable add-ons and whatnot. Okay, BetterBags is what I use for bags. There's really nothing, you can probably use any bag add-on that you'd like. You can even use the default Elvui if you prefer that, but I just use BetterBags. BigWigs is what I prefer. Some people use DBN, but for me, I prefer BigWigs. And my BigWigs will end up being, let's see, dungeon bosses. where are the bars? So we can do a create a test bar, and this is kind of where my bars are. So I know I expect them to be in this section, to the left for important ones and right for general ones. So let's go down. If you want to be able to determine why you're getting lure errors, BugGrabber and BugSack are good. Cell, of course, which I've touched on. Combat time tracker for the screen combat time. Details obviously is very important to know how your healing is doing, what the DPS is like. You can even go into not just meters of DPS and HPS, right? But you can look at interrupts, dispels, cooldowns, etc., etc. So I would definitely take some time to get used to details. If you don't, I'm sure everybody uses it. But there are certain features that people are not aware of. You can control left click into something, especially, and you can go and look at, what is my breakdown of damage looking like? What is the breakdown of healing looking like? So control left clicking into something will lead into more menus that may be helpful for you. We touched on Elvui. See GTFO, which is a very common one where if you're standing in something, it's gonna warn you to get out. Hekili, I do recommend Hekili. It's a priority helper for DPS classes. So if you're a DPS player and you're looking into get into bettering your rotation, I would start out with Hekili, and then as you get better and you know your class, you probably disable it. LittleWigs is something that goes hand in hand with BigWigs, so I would recommend LittleWigs as well. Masque is how my icons look. So this is Zaf Priest WeakAuras. There's like a boxy frame looking feel, and it's a square with a dark black kind of trim on it or outline. This is coming from Masque. So Masque is a skinning engine for button-based add-ons. So I'd like Masque, and you can kind of make your WeakAuras and everything fit. Masque also applies to your abilities down here at the bottom. It's kind of grayed out here, and see if I can remove this. So yeah, you can see it's a little bit the same kind of style as the WeakAuras. They all kind of have a black looking frame around it, and they have a specific style for the icons. That's what Masque will do. Mythic Dungeon Tools is good for routes, so I would get this as well. This is going to be used by certain players that share their own routes. You can even create your own routes. OmniCC is going to be whenever somebody uses Rapture, right? And this timer that's popping up right here on the center of my screen for Rapture, or moving my mouse cursor, that's OmniCC. It's going to be basically cooldown counts for everything. OmniCD I touched up on. It is the interrupt and also the icons at the bottom of my party frames. Opie I tend to use sometimes if I don't want to hit that WeakAura for the instant click. I can go over here and use different things. I mainly use it to like buff. I don't really use it for anything else. But it's just once you hit your middle click, it'll just pop up into different menus, which is kind of convenient if you're like on the move and you just want to, instead of looking, you can just have certain spells here. Premade group filter I actually use quite often. So I haven't updated this in a while, to be honest. So I'm surprised it's still working, but or maybe I have updated it. So find a group. I want to be able to filter by certain things. So if I'm a healer, I want to make sure there's only 0 healers, and then specific dungeons or all dungeons. For example, I just hit search. So if I want to search for an 11, you just hit search, or you want to search for a 10 or 9. You would search over here to the left, and then it would basically, you can even sort by your rating. So I really like the Premade group filter. I use it all the time when I'm pugging, and I tend to be pugging most of the time. Radar.io add-on will be something I use often to update outside of WoW. Personally, I pay for it, but you don't have to. It's free, and it will basically update your add-on. Essentially, Radar.io is going to show what other players' scores are. Vocal Rate Assistant is something that I also VRA. Usually the commands are just a shortened version of the add-on name, so I just guessed that VRA was the command to open this. I really like this one. So most of my videos, you'll see a speech or a voice that will typically I'll track utilities like this when a soul well is created. It just kind of gives you another indicator besides looking at a text on your screen. It's a voice cue that something has happened that you're tracking, right? So if I go to Paladin, do I want to see when they use Divine Shield? I just click Divine Shield, and so when they use Divine Shield, it will tell me through an audio cue that has happened. Again, that's just my personal preference. If you don't like playing with audio, then don't get this add-on, which is again called Vocal Rate Assistant. Of course, WeakAuras very required in this game. WeakAuras makes everything easier. And then side note, World Quest List is just something that will tell you in your zones what kind of let's close this up here. What I believe this here on the right, this is World Quest List, and so it will tell you what world quests are out there. And this is obviously, if you're at end game, you probably don't care about world quest. At least I don't right now. But if you're trying to farm up something, this is helpful to know what rewards are in the whole map that's going on right now. So those are all the add-ons. What I'm using. Yeah, on to the next. Talking a little bit about add-ons. The add-on I enjoy using the most, really just because of the display of the total UI of World of Warcraft, is Elvui. I know that many know about it. Typically at the beginning of an expansion or season, maybe you could have problems here, but it depends on when they'll push updates. They've been really good about pushing updates, and you can use WoW up to get your add-ons updated right away. Again, I don't typically have any problems. I think there's only one time where I had to wait for a broken Elvui, and that was over the course of years and years of playing. Again, I'm not a professional player by any means, but these are just my experiences I'd like to share. So there's many things you can do here. I do with Elvui, the main sections here will be enabled in green, and those that are not enabled will just have a red text where the enable is. So I don't use Elvui for bags. I believe I use BetterBags. So for example, chat, I use this. Data bars, maps, no nameplates, again, because I'm using Plater. I'm also using shadow and light. There's a couple different things that functionality that this brings kind of enhances Elvui. I've been using these for a long time. I haven't had the need to really change away from this, but if you want to play around with this, I recommend just getting the profile that I'm going to share in my Discord, and then going through each one of these menus, because it would really take a long time. Project Azulroka, I'm probably going to butcher that name, has other functionalities as well that could be helpful to you, could not. It depends. Like enhanced friends list, this is enabled. Don't use it for very much, but depending on square minimap buttons, I'm not sure if this is actually working, but regardless, this whole frame right there, these are all my add-ons here on the bottom right of my screen that I'm kind of circling here, that Elvui does. That otherwise, I believe the default UI would have all the add-ons up in this right area near your map. Again, my map is squared. That's not default. So there's different things that are that I like for Elvui. Also, my personal frame here is a part of Elvui, sorry, and this is not a part of cell. So the cell section is this middle section here. So we will touch on cell in a little bit, but I'd like to point out the colors of these enemy nameplates, and that I am using Plater for that. So I will be sharing my Plater profile as long as the Plater NPC colors, all of which were available. I did not create them, but I do believe it's helpful to share them. So for example, this Shadow Mage right here has his name reduced So he's Nightfall Shadow Mage, but here it's just N. Shadow Mage. His color is purple, and that's because he does a cast. So if we just start off here, we attack him. These followers in here will start to attack them. Of course, they're dying so quick, but based off the color, you'll know that these are the guys that you'll have to interrupt. And once I share where I got that from, you'll be able to determine what those colors mean. Some of them might be a CC where you have to stun, and others will be a cast. And then, of course, there's different colors that I can't remember right now, but I highly recommend using Plater and colors for dungeons. Reason being is when you know coming into a pack that these are the mobs that are the most important. So I believe this is highlighting this mob as the most important. Also with my Plater, the way I know that I have that frame, rather the enemy clicked, is the bar will grow a little bit, and there'll also be arrows on the side. Again, my mouse cursor as well, I'll link this WeakAuras. I want to be able to track it and not lose my mouse for whatever reason. I don't know. I'm kind of an older player, but for me, I need to be able to track where my mouse is at all times. It helps in raid and dungeons. I kind of got a little bit off track there, but again, I highly recommend Plater. I don't think I have much experience with other nameplate add-ons. I just like how Plater works, and what you can do as well in general settings. Typically, you can have a stacking nameplate checked. So if I increase this, you can see that on the far end over here, these nameplates are rising. That's kind of a bit too far, but when the mobs are stacked in a group, this nameplate overlap will decide how much space between each nameplate vertically that you'll be able to adjust. So play with that a little bit once you get the profile and see what's best for you. Just one quick thing I want to add with cell. So you can do /cell space opt, which is short for options. And in this window, I do want to at least show that what certain things that I found were useful. So in the appearance tab is general appearance, right? Now, if you go to layouts, you select the layout that you want to view. On the right will be specific layouts that are tailored toward each specific instance or how big your party is. So for example, solo play, I want this profile. Party play, I want this profile. Mythic, this profile, etc., etc. On the left, once we select a layout, you can turn the preview on, so for party or raid, and then you can start to go and see how it would interact. The one good thing about cell is that as you're configuring your indicators, for example, and you pick a layout, you go to your indicators, you'll be able to see it in real time without having to test it anywhere else. And then finally, the last important point, the big point, is where the raid debuffs are and where any other debuffs are that will help you in dungeons, raiding, and all these things are very, very useful because you'll be able to see them on the bars as you go through these dungeons. Something else I want to touch on is combat timer. So there are different combat timers out there. What I like to do is use an add-on called Combat Time Tracker, and this will also be shared in my Discord. But it is essentially this right here, this green 328 here on the left where my mouse is with this purple circle. This is really helpful for me just to know how long the fight's been going. Say you're on a boss. You kind of want to know if like you're either timer based on an ability or like say you're just curious as to how long it's taken to fight a boss. So all that stuff matters. It's helpful in both raid and it also is helpful in dungeons. Next thing I'll talk about is OmniCD. So if you can look at my character frame right here, I'm Axel M in this frame, but of course, that's been renamed because of Cell. But taking a look at this here, these where I'm hovering over with my mouse, this is OmniCD. This might be useful depending on what role you are. For me, I like to look at defensives, and occasionally I might add some of the offensive cooldowns here because I am tracking defensives on the Cell frames. So I would say it just really depends on your use case and what you like and tailor it to your needs. But for OmniCD, it does a couple things. It will allow you to view different abilities based on over display. For me, as a healer, at least for my preference, I like to have the abilities appear below the frames. So for example, this follower, these are not real players. Again, we're in the follower dungeon. We're tracking aspect of the turtle. So if I were to then use fade, I got a couple WeakAuras. They're pretty redundant, you know, because they're showing up in a couple places. But the main thing is the takeaway is you can track different abilities. The other thing you can do here, so let's do / OmniCD. I can go to dungeons and then go to extra bars, interrupts. Okay, so right now it is right here where my mouse is. I can move it around a little bit. What you want to do is you want to kind of, what I like to do is track this versus a WeakAura. First of all, this is going to be more consistent, and you'll be able to manage it better, I believe. And then you can lock the frame. So for me, I typically have it unlocked because if I'm modifying my UI a little bit, I'll leave it unlocked. But I would highly recommend you locking it, picking a good place. For me, I have it right above my combat time. All right, so I'm going to do a little replay here. This is one of my recent videos. I believe it was my last +10 I needed on my priest. So this is a replay using a media player. So what I want to show here is the powerful usage of how you can configure Cell. So I want to track atonement, right? And that's the main thing with this priest is as atonements go all on your players, you know that as you DPS, you will inherently be healing them. So that sounds cool, right? So how do I track that? So here, if you can just start here, this is probably, so I'm gonna do, so here, right here on this tank, again, this is a pug group. I know that I have a shield on him, based off this green icon here that I've configured, that is the shield. And this bar right here, that's in blue, is the atonement. So as we can go by forward, he just got hit. So I know that the shield is now gone, the green shield. And then you can see the atonement has been put on the evoker, which is blue. So as we keep going, right here, I'm going to pause. Okay, this whole party has atonements. The one that's going to fall off is the one from the warrior. Okay. Now this perspective and the way of knowing your buffs can apply to any healer as long as you know what you need to track on your players. So these 4 players have a shield because obviously they're not actively tanking, and those shields should last for a while. My Rapture is on cooldown, but I have 1 more shield left, and you can see like basically Cell will track what debuffs a tank or somebody might have. So a tank has a debuff. I don't really care that it's blocking their name. I could probably change that a little bit to maybe lower it, but that's the least of my worries right now. On the bottom of Cell, I also have, again, this is not what I created, but something that I'm tracking based off the creation of, I believe, the Reet UI Cell, is I know that these guys also have shields because of the icon here, okay? The atonement is the second image on the bottom. If you're following my mouse as I'm explaining that, it'll probably make sense. So as you keep going, I know that the okay, so empowered means obviously the power infusion WeakAuras is going off, and I know that I've probably refreshed my atonement on the tank because he's going to be taking damage here. and then I know that the evoker is going to fall off. So here's my radiance bar here in the middle. So this is with the Zaf Priest UI WeakAuras package. It's also in my Discord. So I know that the dragon's about to hit a knockback, and this is probably not good because there's the knockback circle is about to hit, and atonement's about to fall off. So do I radiance here? I don't. That was probably a mistake, but you can see that if I radiance right before that tank hit, I know that as soon as I get knocked, I can just go right to position out of these circles here and start to DPS. So this is kind of like twofold. Like I'm explaining in a roundabout way how to manage your cell abilities, but also how you could start tracking your usage of what you need to track. So here I'm obviously tracking atonement. I should have used the radiance. So I'm kind of analyzing the video as well. So that's why I said it was twofold. I have the frames. So these things on the right that's popping up on my priest. I have 2 flash heal instaprocs, so I could probably have hit the rogue and the shaman with some insta heals, and then if I wanted to, and then radiance. But I'm also in my pet window here, so I know that this purple halo is empowered from the pet. I'm gonna continue here. When do I actually radiance? Here I go. I probably was just confused as to what was going on, but anyway, okay. The other part of cell that I want to explain is if you want to track all defensives. Okay, cool. I know that I've popped 3 defensives. And so here I could see that I have Fade, Flash Heal, which will give me DR based off my passive, and defensive cooldown here, which is probably a Desperate Prayer. The Evoker, I don't know them by names, to be honest. But this is showing that he has 2 defensives right here. And I think this one on the bottom right is an external. It's just an external indicator. So you can actually track. Unfortunately, my OmniCD was turned off on this run. So that was unfortunate. So I did re-enable it after this. But with Cell, it becomes very, very easy to track debuffs, track externals, track defensives. And for a healer, that's really, really valuable. And yeah, that's what I like about Cell. I know it's being pushed a lot, but I tend to find it really useful and very configurable. So let's fast forwarded here a little bit on this dungeon. We're on the Forge Master boss, and I just want to track and see how these WeakAuras help us, especially as healers, and it also helps the group. So it says right here in the middle, AoE in 4.9 seconds. Okay, so let's hit play. I'm going to play a brief time here. So I know I should radiance. And I'm going to Mind Blast. Okay, because I know that the AoE is coming out. And this circle helps me know when the AoE is done. Then I start to Molten Flurry is coming out. Okay. Spark. So the Evoker has it. And also the Shaman. And they're going to go drop that off. I probably could have prepared more. And then this circle is now telling me that the tank is kiting. So all of these WeakAuras help us make the game a lot easier for us. Okay, like AoE's coming. So I should have already radianced there. So these also help, like, and once you start to record your play as well, when you have all these WeakAuras set up, it's easier for you to analyze where you could do better. Again, the WeakAuras plus Cell and everything that I've showed in this video will help. Obviously, playing the game and playing more does also help with experience and getting better. But what we want to try to do is make our UI helpful for us so that we have a better time during dungeons. And this applies to raid as well.